My name is Mr. Joel. Hello. And the rest of your classmates are from different schools, and they are all in Sec 2 this year. They'll all be in Sec 3 next year. And today, it's actually part of the holiday lessons. So today we are going to cover um, this narrative comprehension and a little bit of current affairs, with, of course, a concentration on identifying question types for your narrative comprehension. So just to remind you, your narrative comprehension is actually part of your it's actually your booklet B. Your booklet B from which paper? From your paper 2. All right. You can call it booklet B or you can call it section B. It's really up to you. Okay, that's your narrative comprehension. Now, last week, I believe I covered summary writing with all of you. And this week we'll be looking at narrative comprehension, which doesn't have summary writing, because summary writing is only for non-narrative texts, like informative texts or non-fictional texts. That will normally be your section C. Today we're looking at section B. Okay. At any point in time, if you have any questions for me, all right, please feel free to ask me within the chat group, or if you want, you can unmute yourself and then you can ask me directly as well. And I certainly hope that you will find today's session interesting and useful. So this is part of our preparatory course. So today we are at tutorial number 44. Just to remind you, the preparatory course is actually part of our holiday program. This is where we're at. Last week we were looking at information reports. Today we're looking at identifying question types. Next week we're looking at recount essay writing, and following that would be more question type identification with a focus on non-narrative comprehension. So that will be your section C actually. Okay. So narrative comprehensions. So there are a few question types that will appear in your narrative comprehension, and they are ones that can be broadly categorized into these 4. First would be literal understanding, where you can just kind of like copy the answer directly from the passage, like literally the answer is just right there. Okay. Number 2 is inference, where you need to make a guess. Number 3 is where you have to find evidence within the passage. Those could be your ones where you have to quote a word or quote a phrase, or find evidence that something is true or something is not true, that kind of thing. That would be evidence. Oh, hold on, here comes Larissa. And lastly, we have vocabulary in context, which means whether you understand the meaning of certain vocabulary in the passage or not, and they will ask you, whether you know the meaning or not, or they'll ask you to look for the one that the meaning is closest to another one, that kind of thing, a word or phrase. So yeah, there are 2 other types of questions that I'm not covering today. First would be language for impact, and the other one is flow in the narrative, not flower. This is not flower. Flow in the narrative, right? So it's either asking you to order or sequence events or changes in feelings and thoughts, right? These will normally be the last question in your section B. It's the one where they give you a few blanks, and then you have to say, okay, from paragraph 1, what was the narrator feeling? Then paragraph 2 to 3, what was the narrator feeling? That kind of thing. Then maybe paragraph 4 and 5, what was the narrator feeling? Then paragraph 6, finally, how did the narrator feel? That kind of thing. So those would be your flow in the narrative kind of questions. Yeah, we're not covering that today. So, literal understanding, right, is testing your ability to understand information that is actually given to you directly. That's what stated explicitly here means. It's literally given in the passage. So that's why I actually said you can copy the answer. But of course, you're not encouraged to. you should write it using your own ideas, right? Using your own words. But you can get the answer directly from the passage, basically, just by reading it properly and a bit more carefully. So these are very straightforward ones. All right. Sometimes they might ask for some details, but you can find all of them in the passage. So the answer might be split between a few different sentences or even a few different paragraphs, possibly, but you can just find them there directly. All right. So, for example, in this paragraph over here, the scarcity of polar bears today and sporadic availability of polar bear fur only push prices higher, intensifying the pressure on the declining polar bear populations. For individuals with a mediocre income, the likelihood to change one's life by killing an animal that they do not value is irresistible. So, just by looking at this paragraph over here, we can answer the question, what drives the price of polar bear fur up? Because the answer is directly within this paragraph. So we say that this kind of question, right? It's a literal question. You can basically find the answers here. So what makes polar bear fur so expensive? First, all right, it's not available all the time. It's only available sometimes, sporadic. Okay. And you know what? To change one's life. So hold on. Intensifying the pressure on declining polar bear populations. Yeah, that's the only answer right there, right? It's not available. It's not available all the time. In fact, it's very rare to get polar bear fur, and that's why polar bear's fur, right, actually becomes more expensive, push prices higher. So you can get the information directly there, and you can write it down, right? So sporadic availability, you can use that phrase, or if you don't want to, right, you can actually express it in your own terms. So you can say it's very rare. When something is sporadic, right, it only appears at very irregular intervals. And that's the same meaning as it being very rare. It doesn't appear all the time. And that's why something is very rare, because it doesn't appear. It's like when you play a game and then you had some special kind of resource that you get in the game, right? That only appears like once every 100 times, that kind of thing. Then you might say, oh, it's very rare, that kind of thing. So it's the same for polar bear fur over here. So we can say, over here, polar bear fur is rare. If you want to further, explain it, right, you can talk about the scarcity, right? Polar bear fur is rare, right, and cannot be found regularly, right? So over here you would have your own understanding. Cannot be found regularly would be this part, scarcity of polar bears, and then this part that talks about rareness is this part, sporadic. So these are basically very direct kind of questions, and you shouldn't have an issue answering these unless you actually change the meaning of it by changing it into your own words. So that might be an issue. Next, we have inferential questions, and the answer is not that direct. You have to make some guesses based on your understanding of the situation. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, is Sherman here? Oh, he's not here yet. Okay. So over here in inference, right? It tests your ability to understand what words suggest or imply, right? It doesn't outright tell you what you should be looking for. So it could be what words suggest or imply, or it could be what the situation suggests or imply as well. So it's not just words, it could be what words or the situation suggests or implies. Okay, so for example, over here it says President S.R. Nathan is remembered as one of the presidents of Singapore, winning the hearts of Singaporeans of different races. He was Singapore's sixth and longest president. Apart from being noted for his political contributions, Nathan is also remembered fondly for a story about his childhood. Having had a love for watching construction workers at work, he happened to find some debris left behind by a foreign worker. So debris is basically anything that is kind of like useless, like you don't need it anymore, and then it's chucked aside. You call it debris, right? Thrilled beyond words, little Nathan tried his hand at putting away the debris, but in it he added his father's favorite magazines. When his father came home and found his magazines missing, he bellowed. Nathan admitted the deed when questioned, saying, "I can't tell a lie, Dad." So, okay, it doesn't really tell you what President Nathan's character is just by looking at that. But by looking at that statement that he made, "I can't tell a lie, Dad," what does Nathan's reply to his father imply about his character? So the whole point of this is actually the word imply. What does it actually imply about his character? So imply means, what does it tell you in a roundabout way, or what can you guess at about his character? And from this, you can basically tell that he was very honest, right? Because he says, "I can't tell a lie, Dad." So you can tell that he had an honest character, even from a young age, when he actually he added his father's favorite magazines into the debris that he found there. Yeah, not sure why he did that though. So yeah, you can write over here. Nathan's reply to his father implies that he has an honest character. So if you want to use other words than honest, feel free, as long as the answer is the same. So over here, you might want to use words like truthful. Maybe you can even use the word like mm, blunt, maybe, because he doesn't really mince his words. Blunt. Okay. But you have to guess. You can't copy the answer from the passage directly. You can't find the answer directly. You have to make a guess. Okay. So these are inferential questions, and normally these are the ones that I think a lot of students actually get it wrong for. And then we have evidence questions. So basically, you need to quote stuff from the text, right? That's an evidence question. So you have to quote stuff from the text and then present those quotes in quotation marks. That's normally your answer. So for example, over here, right, this short paragraph. Cruisers have tried to keep up with evolving customer preferences. On luxury lines, for example, to cater to the class-conscious tourists, it is compulsory for men to don tuxedos and for ladies to be dressed in formal gowns during their fine dining in the cruise restaurants. Dressing down in singlets and t-shirts is highly discouraged. And the question is, how do we know that people on a luxury cruise are well dressed? So basically, they're asking you which part of the passage tells us that, right? So we can just say, we know. So rephrase the question. Always use the question, rephrase the question to help you target your answer, to make your answer more focused. So I'm going to use some part of the question over here. We know that, this part here, people on a luxury cruise are well dressed from the phrase, all right, open inverted commas, anything shorter than a sentence is considered a phrase, okay, as long as it is more than one word. 2 words and above, shorter than a sentence, you call it a phrase. Anything that's 1 word, of course, you call it a word, right? 2 words or more that isn't a sentence, you call it a phrase. If it's an entire sentence, that means it must begin with a capital letter and then end with a full stop question mark or exclamation mark. Then we call it a sentence. All right, so over here, I'm quoting from the phrase, I need to let the reader know that there were actually texts that appeared before this. And that's why I use the 3 dots over here. 3 dots is known as an ellipsis. Okay, so I will do ... And then where does it begin? It starts from it, right? It is compulsory for 们 to